Hey guys, and today we are going to be running some tests on what the best method for using slower clocks would be as opposed to fast clocks. So what I have set up here is three different tests that I'm going to be running 10 times. I have the results here, which you can see in the description. Um, but anyway, so the three tests. So we have a redstone clock, which runs approximately 1 time per second. The problem is getting the exact 1 time per second is actually quite hard, and I'll go over that when I talk about the results later. But yeah, so I'll be running that. All of the commands do the same thing. They summon approximately 40 bats. They summon 40 bats and then add a score to see how many times it runs, and then kill all the bats. So that's what it does, and all of them do almost the same thing. They just have to reset their own type, and I have this main function running all the time to be consistent, and we are starting at about 100 frames and then going down to whatever it is when you activate it. So this one, you activate it, it does its thing. I count 10 seconds. After 10 seconds, I record the successes, and then I look at the frame rate loss. So I'm going to run through these. There'll be like a little quick super speed montage thing of me doing them. It took a really long time, even if it's just 30 tests. So this scoreboard one, this is using a scoreboard that counts from 0 to 20, aka 20 ticks per second. It does it each frame, so basically it counts 20 times, and then at the end of 20, it does the same thing and resets your score. And then the last one is an interesting one. It uses the entity's hurt time data. So when you hit an entity, it has a certain amount of, it has a data tag called hurt time. Let me see. If I do this, data get. Oh, if I change it to data get and I just type in hurt time, it counts how long it's been since the last time it was hurt, and it counts down in ticks, but it says S next to it. So this thing lets you basically say, all right, so I'm going to set its time to 20, and then it counts down to 0, and then it stops counting down to 0. And this uses 0 commands because it's with the default game. So I'll go over the benefits and drawbacks of each one at the end, but you can just see a quick little montage of me going through everything. So the results are in, and as you can see, the redstone clock was by far the worst with a mean frame drop of 33%, meaning that when you run it, you'll probably lose about 33% of your frames that you could be having on that world. In addition, we have the scoreboard version, which is only an 18% loss, which is very nice, and a 23% loss for the entity version. Now, this is just based on running all these entities that are spawning at the same time. Ideally, your commands aren't going to be doing this, so you won't have as big of a loss, but you can just kind of see from the numbers here that the scoreboard, that it's kind of like an even distribution. So we have 18%, and then 5% more than that is 23, but then 10% more than that is redstone. So clearly, using redstone clocks is probably the worst method for using a slower clock, even though it seems like it's the smart way to go because you're not doing as many commands and the functions. It's actually better to run with a scoreboard if you want optimal speed, and use an entity timer if you want optimal timing. And I'll go over that. So when I was running the tests, the numbers, like the clock that I was using on my phone, as soon as I clicked it and flipped the switch, the entity timer would go off exactly at the second mark. However, the scoreboard would not always go off exactly at the second mark, and that's because based on lag, the scoreboard will take longer to run its ticks because it's running with the command lag. The commands and the scoreboard timers will slow down the more things you have going on. But the entity timer will actually not slow down depending on the things you have going on, which is actually really, really nice. So, like, if you want something that has a really heavy dependence on time and not a heavy dependence on efficiency of frames, for example, you have a mini game running and you want to make sure that the mini game has a timer, and the timer counts down, it gives the players what, 50 seconds to do the game, or maybe even 50 seconds to hide, or whatever you want, 30 seconds, whatever. This would be the best for counting down seconds. You don't have that much big of a difference in frame drops. I only had a 5% difference, which isn't too bad. And it's definitely worth the fact that this thing has a lot of functionality to it, because what you can do is, all you do is you set it to a time. You do data merge entity, and you set it to be a time, right? And you can set, you do 20 times the amount of seconds you want. So you want it to do 30 seconds, 20 times 30 seconds is 600. So you set it to 600, then it will take exactly 30 seconds for this thing to reach 0, and it's less dependent on lag because the MBT data is something that's kind of like forced to be prioritized. I believe so. So in my experience, it's less dependent on lag. So this 30 seconds will be more accurate. And when it reaches 0, it'll stop counting down, which is nice. So you don't have any constant commands to count it down. As you can see in here, we have to add this command to constantly count down the timer. So we don't have anything to constantly count it down, which is nice. And we don't even need anything to happen at the end. We can just set it to 600 and then have a constant checking system to check when the hurt time is 0. In this instance, we have to check when the scoreboard hits 0, but we can just use the same command except checking for hurt time. So this is nice because it takes one less command to have this kind of timer, and it's more accurate. So I would use these kind of timers for accurate second timing. I would use these kind of timers to maintain a high frame rate, as well as just be overall more efficient and clear in your code, because this could be confusing. Entities could die, blah, blah, blah. Not too bad to respawn them, but still. So I would use this one for timing, and I would use this one for efficiency, and I would use this one never again, because it is a huge difference in frame drops from either of these. So I hope that was useful to you guys today for some of you more advanced people that are making mini games and stuff and want to know just, the best way to go with your mini game. Anyways, guys, other than that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.